Alright, taking a look at Ethereum Classic on the daily, you can see we have broken below the golden pocket here where the 618 lies. We can also see that we have tested the bottom boundary of this green box with support, and it looks like we're currently having a pump out of it, so this is a decent sign. What would be nice to see here is a break above the 618 and do somewhat of a inverse head and shoulders pattern and see a move back up. You can see, as I mentioned in my previous videos, that this green box of support has held Ethereum Classic up as well as down for periods of time, so we should see somewhat of a bounce here, especially considering that this is the first time we're coming back down to retest it for the most part. We did have somewhat of a test of the upper boundary here, and it's somewhat of a pump out of it, but then we did finally make another move down. If you turn on the EMA ribbon on the daily chart, you can see we've already had a successful test of it and a rejection. This is to be expected as we rarely ever break the EMA ribbon to the upside on the first test of it on the daily, especially when we are in a downtrend. We also had a successful second retest of it, or you can even call this maybe 1, 2, 3. The Ichimoku cloud is pretty far away from us, as well as the 200 EMA, so it's not that much of a concern at the moment. You can see it is getting wider, which really isn't a good sign. We really need to come up here relatively quickly and break it while it's still thin. If we drop down on the 4-hourly chart, we're actually retesting the EMA ribbon currently. We have had a few tests of it throughout this move to the downside again, which is a good sign. The more often we test this, the more likely we are to break it to the upside. 4-hourly Ichimoku isn't really that much of a concern at the moment. And if we turn on the RSI here, we might actually have some bullish RSI divergence. Yeah, okay, so here on the 4-hourly, we do have some bullish RSI divergence. If you look here, where this low is right here, we had a reading of around 19. At this low, which is a lower low, we had a reading of around 30. So this is called bullish RSI divergence. Usually this means that there's going to be a trend reversal. Now whether this is a short-term trend reversal and we see a move, say, all the way up here to the 0.5 level before having another rejection, somewhat of a fake out, kind of like we did back here. We'll just have to see what happens, but this is a very good sign in my opinion, at least on these smaller time frames. If you take a look on the hourly here, you can see we are trading within the Ichimoku cloud and the EMA ribbon has been broken to the upside and about to turn green. This is a decent sign. We really need to get out of this Ichimoku cloud as this is technically a no trade zone. So really we need to break above this green box and use it as support, at least the top of it, so that way we can find another move up. I think I mentioned this in my previous video, but we did come down to test the 200 weekly moving average on Ethereum Classic, but we did have a successful close below it as well as another wick. And we could very well do something like this where we come back above it and retest it as support and find another move up, have somewhat of a V bottom here. We can get some pretty nice volume here on the weekly candle, and it needs to really stay where it is for the most part. If anything, it needs to shrink up a little bit so it can make a hammer candlestick. Usually these hammer candlesticks signify a bottom and we usually move up from them. Now this isn't always the case. There have been instances where we have had hammers at the bottom and we do continue lower. But usually in those cases the volume really isn't helping it all that much. We really need to see a relatively large spike in volume. As you can see, there really isn't much yet, but the candle just opened not too long ago, so we'll just have to see what happens throughout the week. So to sum things up here, Ethereum Classic really needs to find support off of this green box again and start a new uptrend here, breaking this previous high at least, so that we can come up here and start testing the Ichimoku cloud relatively heavily, so that way we can also break it to the upside, as well as the 200 EMA here. So if we do bounce here, look for a potential inverse head and shoulders pattern forming at the neckline, which would be sitting around 25 bucks. If we do get this inverse head and shoulders pattern, we could very well trade above the Ichimoku cloud here and say find a move all the way up to 44 bucks. But considering we are still technically in a downtrend ever since back here, we still need to expect a further move down until we start breaking some previous highs. If we can't manage to hold this green box to the upside and say come down here and do something like this where we retest it as resistance, we'll probably have a pretty magnetic move all the way down back to this one level, which is sitting at these lows. The one level is sitting around 4 bucks. This is all I have for Ethereum Classic today. If you enjoyed this video, go hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do so. If you'd like to join the Discord, I'll post the link to it in the description below. As always, this is not financial advice, and I'll see you in the next one.